So this is an example of the unique challenges that you can face when building for Africa. Let's say you have a product where users need to click to pay, and the user clicks on a button and nothing happens, and he clicks again and again and again, and then after like 2 minutes, you notice that your app have deleted him or her like 3 times or 4 times. That is a problem. That is a unique problem. All right, sorry about that, guys. So I think they want me to sit. I'm impressed. I'll just continue while that is going on. So yes, in order to build in Africa and have a product that will not end up as a burden to your users, we're going to look at 3 broad categories that you need to consider. The first one is the grand reality. When we talk about grand reality, what do we mean? We're talking about what are the factors that you need to consider when building. The first one is stable internet. It's unfortunately, we live in a part of the world where our internet is not so reliable. Reliable power supply, seamless payment solutions. So these are like some of the grand realities that you need to consider when building. When you're building a product for the Nigerian market, you need to consider things like internet not being stable. An example, it's like the payments that I mentioned. So in a situation like that, it would be safe and better for you as a developer to just disable the button after the first click. That can save you a whole lot of headache. Reliable power solutions. So let's say you have a multi-form flow. Do you save the form at the end of the flow, or do you save after each form? Factors like this should be considered when building for Nigeria. Data consumption. Are you supposed to go out there and build something that would, suck up people's data? You need to consider that also when building. Payments. Yeah, so from my experience building for this space, I've noticed that Nigerians love to pay with transfer, trust me. So are you building an app that requires people to put their debit cards? You might have challenges. People might not want to do that. So payment should be versatile. You should accept USSD, transfers, and all that. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is failure is normal. Yes, so let us also talk about technology. Let's talk about stack, right? When you're building for the Nigerian market, of course, you want to make money. You want to get to the market as fast as possible. The technology stack that you choose to work with, I think, is a business decision. It's something that you need to be very, very careful about. There are modern stacks that make sense. Or the question is that most things that we build work on them solo or with a very small team. Do you really need all of that big technology out there? So things like there are stacks that would cost you more money to use. An example might be having to build an API and the front end and having to deploy on a VPS for a project that does not even have 100 users. Trust me, you don't really need that. For a developer building for the Nigerian market, it's advisable to use things that are simple, straightforward, that you can work on alone or just a group of developers. Something like Laravel. I love to talk about Laravel a lot. Laravel can save you a whole lot of stress. With Laravel, you can spin up things like authentication, payments, queuing, so many other features that would consume time. With Laravel, you can deploy on a shared host where you pay something as little as $3 a month, as opposed to using a VPS where you have to pay heavily. And this, trust me, will save your business a lot of money. So when building for the Nigerian market, always consider stacks that would help you to get to market faster, save costs, and will be easy to deploy. Because the more layers of complexities that you add, the more possibility for things to break. Right? So keep it simple and you will achieve your goal. So the next factor to consider is actually the problem that you are solving. Alright? Don't go out there to do something flashy, something impressive that would solve no problem. You need to validate the market, you need to interact with your potential users, you need to identify a problem and solve it with the simplest way possible. Right? When you identify a problem, make sure you keep it very simple for your MVP. Try to solve it the simplest way possible using the easiest stack and the simplest one that you know of. But always make sure that whatever you're building is solving a real, tangible problem. Don't go to, don't chase trend. Don't chase trend. In Nigeria, there was a time when the data and airtime thing was a trend and everybody was out there trying to build it. Some fields, some are still out there. As a matter of fact, I have one. Don't chase trend. Identify real problems and try to solve them. And finally, I would say don't be afraid to fail. That's your big idea that you have in mind that you believe in so much might fail, trust me. So if you want to be a real builder, don't be afraid to fail. If you have an idea, make sure you build it, put it out there, get users, endeavor to get users. Let real human beings use that product and see if that is actually worth your time or not. So that's it. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Moses. Thank you, Techstars. However, this presentation is unique because it's broken into two. Please help me welcome to the panel, Peculiar and Charles. Peculiar, you're welcome. Charles, you're welcome.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. First check, how are you feeling? People are just nodding their head. They want to continue building. How are you feeling? How's Techstars been? Well, I want someone to just give me real feedback. Don't know if I have $100 just lying fallow for somebody. All right, the conversation that we are here to have today is a spin-off from what Mr. Moses just spoke about, and it's something that we've tried to emphasize on ever since the beginning of the build. I mean, I've been here since Monday in a very Nicodemus way, and it's focused on how we can localize our solution. I know to an extent I overheard some of the conversations that spinned off around how a lot of persons are just building fintechs and the likes, but people are not necessarily trying to diversify into other regions. And while we understand that there are constraints, the conversation here is focused on how can we build infrastructures and solutions that actually address our African problems. And the people here is someone who has built solutions, and the conversation Mr. Moses just had now also tailors around the kind of problems that we face in Nigeria. And yes, why fintech is on the rise. The conversation is to spur us to think deeper, right, and look for problems that we can actually build solutions around. So before we dive deep, I just want Charles to briefly introduce himself and just give us a brief of what he does and what he has done. All right, thank you, Charles.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Charles Orafu, and I'm a mobile app engineer. My sector is around fintech and health. The past recent years, I've been able to work with fintech companies, banks, and startups. I'm currently a mobile engineer for Liquid INC located in Dubai. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Charles. A round of applause for him. All right, so just to spin off the conversation, we can start. I think I want to know, as African techies, even one of the things that we do at Techstars, which is why being a part of this conversation, Techstars and Week FCT is something that we, are passionate about as an organization, is creating equal access for tech talent. I think I want to know, which is something that almost every techie, if they will agree with me, you face one challenge, is either you face power challenge, data support, the internet is terrible. We agree that those are some of our biggest constraints as African developers. So I would say, what were some of your biggest challenge, your immediate challenge you experienced, when you dived or started very new in the ecosystem?
For me, it's poor connectivity. I tell you, what poor connectivity can do to a simple, basic flow is so big, massive, right? The UI can look also clean, right? But if the user has a poor connectivity whilst trying to transact using payment, for example, a lot can go wrong. The entire system can break down. Right, especially for fintechs that each step matters. Imagine you want to make a transfer, and whilst trying to select the bank name, you're able to see the drop down to select it. So poor connectivity can do a lot of bad. And for Africa, I thought of it that instead of focusing on that happy part, I should focus on resilience, right? Building systems like features like offline modes, features like offline mode, then sessions. You can save each history for each transaction. Meaning there are some mobile applications that before you transfer, they already make API calls to get the bank name on the home screen. Why are you doing that? So that before you get to that page, you have access to the vital information that you need.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so just to also speak up from there, you're currently talking about some of the things you are building. I think maybe we want to expand a bit. What are you currently building, and how do you think will solve some of our problems that we experience, the infrastructure problems that we are currently experiencing in Africa?
Yeah, the core problem that trying to solve is access to financial services. Right? In Africa, most users are mobile first, meaning most persons access the internet via their mobile phone. But some of them still don't have access to these financial services. So I'm trying my best to ensure that the entire team that I work with, to ensure that users have access to financial services that are secure. Right? Once an app is secured and it has a very good user experience, you can trust the solution to deliver anytime.
All right, thank you very much. So I think one question I always love to have asked, and the conversation I love to have is, with the advent of AI, we know that a lot of things in terms of coding, user flow, and all that has become easier. But now for we to create sustainable products and things that are different, it boils down to system thinking. Just to show a little bit of light to that conversation, what would you advise builders who are currently building with AI? How would you advise that they approach the conversation or when building with artificial intelligence? What kind of mindset should they have, considering that AI now has been structured in such a way that it can do bulk of the work? What mindset should builders have when dealing with AI?
Well, in Nigeria we have lots of infrastructure problems. One is poor connectivity. So if you are working as a fintech in Africa, you should design your architecture even whilst using AI to design it for failure. Because assume that network will drop at any point, right? You don't have an onboarding flow that has 15 steps or 3-4 steps. Like users can drop off at any moment, right? You build a system that few steps, easy to navigate. Then also clear feedback. Users need to know what's happening at each point in their application, right? There's this design principle that has to do with least astonishment. So you don't surprise the user. Users should expect that at this moment or at this stage that they are in a particular application or feature, that this feedback should be what they should be expecting and not something else. So there should be clear feedback.
All right, thank you very much. So, from your experience, just to bring it up to the conversation here today, someone once envisions, you're here today as a mentor at the Techstars Salon Week, amidst all the challenges that you faced in your journey. What is just that one advice that you give to someone who is starting out and trying to navigate, the world of tech, right? With how things, emerging trends are spinning off every day and all of that. What's just that one thing that you give to someone out there as a guide, if I was saying so?
Yeah, currently it's very difficult to focus as an aspiring developer or a designer or someone that wants to venture into tech. During my own time, it was easy because you don't find lots. There are information, right? But you just have a few persons that know what they want to do. You focus on them. You tell them about what you want to do. They mentor you through it. But now there are lots of resources online. AI, everybody's talking about AI, but I tell you, it's best to start from the foundation. Yes, I know you want to build websites, you want to build mobile applications, you want to be one of the best backend engineers, but you start with one, right? During my own, the best advice I would give is you start with a stack. I'll use JavaScript as an example. If I want to do a website designer, start with HTML, CSS. Then various CSS frameworks, Bootstrap, and it's like, then you move straight to JavaScript, learn JavaScript. Before the frameworks, JavaScript, TypeScript. This foundational knowledge is of great importance. And it's difficult to even focus because when you are learning a particular stack, someone is telling you, hey, I'll build this thing. No. Be grounded in it. Know what that language is all about. Like, be able to even speak it or write it if the need arises. Then you can move to the framework as they say React, Next, and its likes. So I built websites for over 2 years, even with the fact that I know that my other colleagues were full stack engineers, but I had to focus on one thing, gain mastery in it before moving to the others. And it's lucky enough, JavaScript has other frameworks for mobile and for web. So you can easily move from React to React Native, which is a JavaScript framework that works on both Android and iOS applications. So you focus on one, have gained mastery in it before moving to the other, and not learning a lot of things and can't even get a job for any of them. Yeah, that's my advice.
Alright, so I think the conversation here is borders on building mastery over speed, right? And at the same time, developing the mindset of thinking, right?
Please, what do I do? It's in the screen.